With EU5 coming out in less than 1 month, this means it's the perfect time to make a tier list. This is because we are not going to get any balance changes. Now, this is my starting nations tier list. As you can see, I've got the Netherlands and Bavaria here, and maybe some other nations like Maya and Inti that don't start day one, but keep in mind I won't be analyzing only the Netherlands. I'll be analyzing either Holland or Brabant, or for Bavaria I'll be analyzing Munich or Ingolstadt, on top of analyzing Bavaria or the Netherlands. Also, as you can see, there is Köln. For Köln, whatever I say for them, you can take the same and use it for Trier or Mainz. They are pretty much the same nation. Now, with that being said, this is my tier list. I've made a few more ranked than usual, and this is because I need to determine how good is a nation, and I need to consider their military power, their economy, their national ideas, their mission tree, their region, how easy it is to take over that region, and of course if there's some better nation than them, like said nation does the same they do, but better, just as France does what Burgundy does, but better. Now, S means some nation is the best. Hordes could also be in S, but that would be boring, so I will make a Hordes tier alone. A and B are pretty much the same. Both A and B first need to take over their home region, and then they can start conquering everyone else, but B has it somewhat harder to conquer everywhere else, even though they are very good at continental expansion, let's say. C plus and C, pretty much the same as I said for A and B. Both of those tiers have it pretty easily to conquer their home regions, but C has certain mechanics or missions that allow them to do it faster than regular Cs, even though both C plus and C struggle to keep up their pace until certain point. They are kind of suboptimal nations, even though they are still good. Like, no nation is bad in this tier list except for the ones ranked in bad. In bad I will just feature some nations that I find fun, even though they're not good. So with that being said, let's move all the hordes to the hordes tier, and I'm going to make it quick. The best of all of them is Oirats, and the second best is Jiangsu. This is because they have way easier access to feudalism than every other horde, because on their first war both they can conquer provinces from some nation that has feudalism, in this case Ming for both of them, and then goes Kazan and Uzbek, which both have great armies, and then are Nogai and Mogulistan, which don't have as good armies as Kazan or Uzbek do, and then these two are the worst ones because they have a very bad starting ruler. However, all of the hordes are some of the best nations. Race is completely insane. Having a casus belli on everyone with no unjustified demands is also insane. Their high tolerance just for being a horde is again insane. Their high shock on steps is insane. So yeah, with the last patch making them even better than they were, it's only obvious that I was going to make a horde tier alone. Now we're moving on with these three, and they all go straight to D. Maya is better than these two because they get 20% CCR with their religion. Aztecs, even though they get 15% CCR and Inti doesn't get CCR, Aztecs is pretty weird because in order to start reforming your religion, as you know, you need to flip to animist, then develop, and then you can flip back to your religion and reform off of some vassal you released, or you can just wait until the Europeans arrive, but that takes a long So yeah, that's the reason why actually Inti could be considered the best out of all of them, because they have the shortest wait time of all of these three. Now, Ayutthaya. Ayutthaya, it's C+, it has to be C+. Why is this? Because they have easy access to the Empire of China mechanic. Even though Ayutthaya isn't bad per se, like they've got decent missionary and very rich provinces from the start, and actually great monument like the Palace of Bangkok is on Bangkok, of course. They are not that good because most of their good stuff is hidden behind the Siam disaster and forming Siam, which takes too long. However, even if you don't plan to wait until then, Ayutthaya is still a great nation because of how strong they start and because they have access to the Empire of China. If they didn't have access to the Empire of China, they would be worse than they are, but they do. However, David has the same access to the Empire of China Ayutthaya does, but they can also make it easier for them to take the Empire of China because of their mission tree. Their mission tree encourages you to take the Empire of China and makes it easier for you by decreasing the Ming mandate and so on. Now, on top of that, they've got better perma modifier on their mission trees, like they've got siege ability and so on, which is huge for a Southeast Asian nation, and that's why David is better than Ayutthaya. For Malacca, as I said before, no nation on this list is bad. All the bad nations are out of the list. But out of all of them, Malacca is one of the worst, because if you're going to play in Indonesia, pretty much every nation feels the same, so you might just go and play Majapahit, which is the best. The only ones with kind of different gameplay are the Spice Islands, Tidor and Ternate. But yeah, Malacca has their own version of the Majapahit campaign. It's called Malacca campaign, but only works on people with Malayan culture. So it's, yeah, way worse than Majapahit. Speaking of Majapahit, there are Tairei, their Majapahit campaign. Casus Belli allows you to vassalize any nation, no matter how big they are, no matter how strong they are, no matter how rich they are. You can just vassalize it in a single war. Now, you have to combine this with the shogunate, so you have to improve relations with the daimyos in Japan and enforce peace when you are around Diplotech 7 and you have enough colonial reigns to take provinces in Japan, to make Majapahit work to its max potential. But if you do this, then you are completely unstoppable. You just have to vassalize anyone who you want. They won't have liberty desire at all, because you are going to take the shogunate, making every vassal calculate their strength independently, not combining all of the vassal strength. And ideally you would like to take some ideas like expansion and, I don't know, offensive, whatever policies that give you less liberty desire per subject development, making you able to, I don't know, subjugate Great Britain, Russia, or whatever actually, and they will still be loyal. It's completely insane how good Majapahit is, even though it is kind of tricky and you've got to know what you're doing when you try to take over the shogunate. Now, Serbia is just bad. Like, they're surrounded by way stronger neighbors, and even though you can fight Hungary, there's not much point in doing it, because where are you going to expand next? On the HRE? Up north on the HRE again? Bohemia is up north, or Poland. Serbia has very limited ways of expansion and it starts pretty small, so there's no way Serbia is one of your preferred nations if you're going to world conquest, even though it is very fun to play. But yeah, it's just not as good as the other nations in the list. Now, Byzantium, it's 30. Even though some people say the start is kind of tricky, as of 1.36, your first war with the Ottomans and your second war with them is way easier to win than before. Even if you now have a lot of debuffs, you can just remove them on the first 5 years or so and get a buff that replaces them. If you know what you're doing, you can easily beat the Ottomans alone without having any help, just by plugging the strait and taking everything in the Balkans and just waiting for the peace deal. Yeah, you have to stay idle for a time, but it's very, very, very easy war to win. Now, once you beat them for the second time and finish getting all of the Balkans, you will also have that CCR from Serbia. After conquering Serbia, you should, as soon as you beat the Ottomans, attack Serbia to get the CCR mission. Then on top of that, you've got the Pronoias, which are some of the best subjects in the game, even if they give you some debuffs where you have them. As soon as the ruler dies, if you have retracted the right to inheritance, you're going to inherit all of the subject. No diplo points spent, no time spent, no busy diplomat. You just inherit them as if they were a personal union. It's just 100% chance to inherit them. It's completely insane. On top of that, they have very, very, very good mission tree since the last patch where they were updated, and their ideas also got revamped, giving them a lot of CCR and a lot of missionary strength and missionaries in order to make it easier to convert everything, to get less unrest. Byzantium is completely insane. As soon as you finish your second war with the Ottomans, you are already set to go for a world conquest with them. Like, it's insane how good they are, actually. Now, for the Teutonic Order, they're again C+, and this is only if you play with the Crusader path, because you get access to raids, you become a horde, you can even form the Mongol Empire as the Teutonic Order. If you do that, then it's C+. Why is it C+ and not higher? Because it takes you a lot to get the raids. You need to fight Poland and Lithuania for 1,000 times in order to be able to get that. And before that, you kind of just attack the people surrounding you and yeah, expand a bit. But your main goal is pushing forward through Ruthenia and Russia in order to get your race mission. And until then, you're pretty much going to fight Russia and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and then the FK, and until the truce is over, and then fight again. It's kind of slow, but as soon as you get the race, you can just steamroll the whole world. So that's why it's C+ and not higher. Now, if you want to go with the Prussian path, I just recommend you not to do it. Like Brandenburg can already form Prussia and does it way, way better than the Teutonic Order does. Even if it takes them longer to do so, it's still better to form Prussia as Brandenburg. Of course, not picking their Tier 1 gov reform, that gives you less 50% gov cap. Now, the Livonian Order is everything I said bad about the Teutonic Order, well, then it's worse for the Livonian Order. Now, also they don't get any similar thing like the race mission for the Teutonic Order, so they're, yeah, like it's fun to play them, but they're just bad, just as Serbia, maybe even worse than them, because Serbia has gold mine in Kosovo. I let it there, they are pretty much as bad. Now, the Ottomans are obviously the best nation in the game. This is not only because of their mission tree, which is insane, not only because of their ideas, which are insane, like starting with CCR makes no sense at all. It's because of the Ayalat mechanic. Just as we said, the Pronoiars are good for Byzantium. Well, Ayalets are 10 times better than the Pronoiars because you don't have to annex them. They are not going to take GovCap once you annex them. I mean, they do if you annex them, but ideally most of your islets are not going to be annexed. They are just going to be left there because islets give you more money, more manpower, more land force limit, and more naval force limit than regular vassals do, and they don't take anti-plus lot. And if they are a core islet for the liberty desire, they don't calculate it with every other subject strength. So same as the shogunate, all of your vassals are going to be loyal, and all of your vassals are going to give you a lot of money and manpower for you to fight. That's just insane to get since day one. Like for Majapahit, in order to get that, you have to reach admin tech 10. For room, you have to actually form room before getting that. But for the Ottomans, you just have this since day one. Like you can religions flip 3 to 4 times, depends on how much do you want to do it and how safe do you want to play. But yeah, you just religion flip at the start, and you can just then vassalize pretty much all of Arabia, all of the Maghreb, all of the Middle East, and even some people in India and Indonesia can be vassalized. Like it's completely nonsense. On top of that, they have insane discipline buffs to their armies and a lot of siege ability in their missions, and their missions also make them get a lot of islets in pretty much everywhere. Like you can islet Morocco, Tunis, Hungary, the Mamluks, Persia, Adai. You can. Yeah, it makes no sense. The Ottomans are just the best nation in the game with a huge margin over the hordes. Now Lithuania. Lithuania is kind of a tricky nation to rank because they start very poor. They start also very disunited with a lot of unrest because all of your provinces are from a different culture group than yours, and pretty much all of your provinces are Orthodox and you are Catholic. So you've got to play with that privilege, the Grand Orthodox autonomy, if you want to do it optimally, of course. However, they have some crazy stuff though, like most of this involves using your Cossack revolt and making a new tag to play as, which I'm not going to cover. But yeah, people have done very crazy stuff with that. Now they are still good because they start with a lot of manpower. They even get a PU in Russia on their mission tree, and you can start by going eastwards. Going eastwards is good on EU4 because the nations in Asia are usually weaker to fight, and you can usually get a lot of money from there to build a power base and then on the end conquer Europe. However, Lithuania is somewhat weaker than Poland, and that lets them in tier B. Now Hungary again is not as good as it seems. Hungary has to go maybe above these two, even if Empire of China is huge. Look, Hungary can easily take over pretty much all of Eastern Europe. Like you can PU a lot of nations and take over the Balkans. But the best thing from your mission tree is time gated. Also, you need to do some nonsense stuff like to PU Bohemia. You first have to attack them and take Silesia, and then you can declare on them for PU. For Austria, it's the same, and it makes no sense to weaken your PU if you are going to take it as a PU. Like, I don't know if you get me, but it doesn't make sense in my mind. Aside of that, they don't have many stuff, like their ideas are not great. Now they even have a disaster, the Hungarian Revolution, if you form Austria-Hungary. So no, they are not as good as they seem. They have a decent start, but they run off steam very easily, and they cannot recover from that easily. You have to wait until you have religious ideas to actually get some decent casus belli. Now Wallachia is probably the worst nation out of all of this. You start surrounded, you have to make some good alliances, maybe Bohemia and Muscovy, then attack Hungary or Poland, take over all the Romanian lands slowly. You could also maybe Nosebit some Balkan and expand in the Balkans from the start if you want, but yeah, the best way to play is maybe doing that, but still it's a very slow way to play, and they are bad. They are very bad. Now Poland goes also to Tier B because they are just slightly better than Lithuania, and even if you can take again all over Eastern Europe on the first years as Poland, then you just sit at your admin tech 5 or admin tech 6 and say, oh, yo, what do I do now? And you have to build claims and attack with that claim you build if you want to expand somewhere else, which will give you a lot of unjustified demands because your mission tree just is locked behind forming the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which you can do usually at admin tech 10, but if you take the Ruthenian provinces from Lithuania in the negotiations of Lublin mission, you can actually form it in admin tech 8, which is kind of better, I guess, but still definitely not as good as Majapahit or Byzantium, even though it's better than the Teutonic Order and Hungary, and maybe slightly better than Lithuania, even if you don't get a PU on Russia. Now, speaking about Russia, there we have both Muscovy and Novgorod. Russia is just one of the best tags in the game. They have insane ideas, insane mission tree, and insane events. Russia is just very strong, maybe one of the strongest regular nations, if you wanna call it like that, because they don't have access to, let's say, Majapahit campaigns or easy kind of war conquest, just like the Aichari Revoke. Even though you can technically flip, it's out of the way, so I'm not considering it. Russia is insane, and Muscovy is just Novgorod, but stronger. This is why Novgorod goes below Muscovy, maybe in Tier B. Now there we have the Far East nations, and these are Ashikaga and Oda. Ashikaga is somewhat better than Oda. Both represent forming Japan. Yeah, but Ashikaga represents using the shogunate, which makes it a bit better than this, who relies on their mission tree and their ideas made for conquest. You can even take Empire of China if you want, but starting with a power base in Japan instead of Indochina, which makes them somewhat stronger than David and Dayute in my opinion. But again, shogunate is a strong reform. Ashikaga only is better than the daimyos if you are going to play with the shogunate, but if you just want to form Japan, then take a daimyo instead. Do not do it as Ashikaga. Ashikaga is very slow at forming Japan, and it's most of the times not worth it. Just do a daimyo instead. You can also start your game by doing a few humiliation wars, where you show strength and get a lot of mana and put yourself ahead of everyone else. Ashikaga cannot do that, so yeah, that's why. Now there is Korea. Korea is again one of the nations that rely on Empire of China for big conquest, and that's why they are again better than David and Ayutthaya. Their lands are richer. Korea can also easily invade Japan, but they're definitely not better than the ones that already start in Japan. Now, Ming is again kind of a tricky nation, just like Byzantium, and it's again a very good nation. Let me explain. Ming usually tends to explode because the AI doesn't know how to manage their disasters. But when you have a big nation with how much development Ming has on day one, all of the tributaries Ming has on day one, and their mission tree which is decent, it has to be a strong nation. Also, the Celestial Empire reforms are very good. Some of them are even insane, like GCR and Province War Cost. However, you still need to know what to do as Ming. If you don't know what to do, you are just going to explode. And even if you manage not to explode as Ming, maybe you can still not know how to expand. Let's say, if you want to do a world conquest as Ming, or not even a world conquest, but just expanding a lot, usually you will invade India. This applies to Ming as well. But Ming has a very specific way of expanding. Like once you go to India, you are not going to just snake until you get the centers of trade. You need to snake and consider on top of the centers of trade and estuaries the OPMs that can be released, because these OPMs you are going to release them and make them your tributary in order to print a lot of mana. Ming gets a lot of mana. From OPMs they can get 2 mana per year, and you can have hundreds of OPMs as your tributaries. Now, some other nations, like Oirat, once you go to war with Oirat, what are you going to do? Well, you are not going to conquer their land. Maybe you are going to take some land to make a snake, but you're not going to take over most of their land because it's not good land. So you're going to either vassalize them or tributary them. Big tribes obviously give more mana than small tribes, even though small tribes are more efficient. So yeah, you also need to know when you can do all that stuff, because if you go low on mandate, you are going to explode most likely. So in the hands of the right player, Ming is one of the best nations in the game, but it's so easy to mess up with it. Now, there are the Indian nations. Yeah, this is Orissa. Orissa has decent army from day one. They can also inherit all of their vassals. You can vassal feed and then inherit them by using your mission. But even with that, they are not that good. This is because they're Hindus in India. India is all Hindu land, but owned mostly by Muslim land, by Muslim sultanates. That means you are not going to benefit from the province war score cost, because the province war score cost against other religion takes the province religion into consideration when doing the math, and not the owner's religion. So usually being Muslim will be the best you can do in India, because most of the people is Muslim and you will get less aid towards them, and you will also benefit from the province war score cost. And this is why also Vijayanagar goes, well, maybe higher than Orissa, because they start with a higher power base, but they are all pretty mid. Even Mewar is maybe the best Hindu nation in India. They have some very good modifiers for their armies, like they start with infantry compatibility, and these modifiers get even better once you form Rajputana. They're still Hindu, and yeah, you can flip, but if you're going to flip anyways, just play someone who already starts with this religion, right? Just like, for example, Bengal or Bahmanis. Bahmanis is maybe the best nation in India, because in India not every province is Hindu, some of them are Sunnis, but there are no Shia provinces in India, almost no Shia provinces. This means you are going to get more province worker cost reduction from all the provinces as Bahmanis. Bengal is another good nation because you can make your Bengal trade node stronger, because you get claims on Indochina, and then you can expand in Indonesia, on the East Indies, and funnel all these trade goods to Bengal. And then while you start conquering the rest of India, you can make this trade power you now have in Bengal be steered towards somewhere else, like Doaba, once you finish getting enough trade power in Doaba. But until then, Bengal will have a lot of money. Bengal is probably the richest nation in India. Now there is Delhi, and Delhi is not as good as Bengal and Bahmanis. Obviously, I'm not referring to Delhi as the play as Delhi day one. No, like you should usually try to do it as Jampur, try to form Delhi as Jampur. If it's not possible because Sirhind declares independence, then you can just do it as Sirhind, and it's better than doing it as Delhi, because Delhi starts on a pretty unstable situation. Now Delhi is a good tag, but it's not good to start as them. As Delhi, Sirhind or Jampur, you can just play as someone else and then form Delhi, and then form something else like Deccan. In India, you should ideally flip your culture a few times in order to get all of the regional powers, the modifiers, just like in Italy. Same goes for Italy. Like, well, more on that later once we reach Savoy and Milan. Now, these are the Coyunlus, and the Coyunlus are both very, very underrated. AQ is slightly better because on their ideas are better. Like AQ gets 20% CCR, while QQ gets 10% CCR and 5 province worker cost. However, this gap is not as big between them because, again, Karakoyunlu is Shia, and the Shia is usually better for conquest. Ibadi is maybe the best out of all Muslim denominations because of the province worker cost. But yeah, this makes them not be way behind AQ. Now, AQ and QQ both have something very great on top of their ideas, which are very good, both of them. They are a tribe, so this means you can reform into a horde and start raising everything. However, if you don't wanna reform into a horde because you don't like horde gameplay, then it doesn't matter. The AQ3 guides you toward forming Room, which, as I said before, they have violets, and this is why Room is one of the best nations in the game, just as the Ottomans are. And the QQ3 guides you toward forming either Persia or Mughals. Mughals is one of the best nations in the game, again, mostly because of their ideas, which are like they start with 25% CCR, but they have the Tertugov reform, Mughal D1, which makes every culture accepted. This is unvaluable, really. It's completely insane, and these two nations are usually overlooked, but both of them are one of the best nations in the game. Now for the Mamluks are awesome. They're insane. They have a lot of insane privileges, like you can get colonists without having to get colonial ideas. You can get a lot of development reduction cost on their ideas. You can even build Suez, the canal, the channel. It makes no sense. They even get claims everywhere. Like you can expand to the left on the Maghreb, you can expand to the right on the Middle East, you can expand to the north on Anatolia, and then you can keep expanding in the Balkans. All of this while deplovassalizing all of Arabia. Yeah, Mamluks are an insane tag. However, they are also one of the easiest formables. So yeah, if you are going to play as the Mamluks, you could always form them as something else. Also, their ideas are not great. Egyptian ideas are somewhat better, but in order to form Egypt soon enough, you need to do it via mission tree. So yeah, that's why the Mamluks, while they are great, there are better nations around them, and I feel like if you wanna get the best things out of the Mamluks, which are the double age ability on the Age of Reformation and getting all of their special units, you can always do it as some other nations. You can form the Mamluks and then reform into something else again. So yeah, that's why. Now Ethiopia is a sub-Saharan nation, and sub-Saharan nations are very bad in EU4. Like all of these provinces have a lot of unrest. For Ethiopia, it's even worse. Unless you go religious idea, you won't be able to convert all of the land when you have surrounding you, because most of it is Muslim land. So it kind of forces you to go religious ideas, and then you are still going to get rebels. Same goes for Songhai. Songhai again gets a lot of rebels, and sub-Saharan Africa gets a lot of rebels in EU4. Even if they have some decent things on their trees and on their ideas, it's just not worth the effort. You can just play something else. Now these are the two Maghrebi nations, and both are going to C. Even though Morocco is better than Tunis, Moroccan land is actually rich, Tunisian land is not. Only the Tunis state is good. Moroccan land even has like clothes and spices and even gold. Like it's way better than Tunis. Even though they are played similar, like you consolidate the Maghreb, then you move to the south to sub-Saharan Africa, because your tree gives you those provinces on the Sahara colonized for you, and then you can start conquering Africa toward the south. You can also invade Granada early and reform into Andalusia, which is probably the funniest way to play Andalusia, way funnier than doing it as Granada, which starts very weak, and where you have to attack Tlemcen early, take a lot of unjustified demands, and then fight the Moroccans and the Tunisians while you hope for the Castilian and the Portuguese to not attack the Moroccans or the Tunisian before you do. Yeah, this is probably the best way to play them, forming Andalusia. Now Andalusia is one of the best tags. Like they have insane ideas. Like they have goods produce modifier, even a colonist, which is not good later, but it's decent early on. Tolerance of Kidans, manpower, and of course CCR. Like Andalusian ideas are very great. Now there's Georgia, and if this was a fun nations tier list, then Georgia would be the absolute number one. But it's not, so they are just there on C+. Why is this? Even though they are one of the funniest nations in the game, by far, they still start in a very complicated position. Like, they start very weak, and what makes them strong is their mission tree. Their mission tree gives them a cleansing of heresy casus belli. Most people on speedruns just form Georgia for this casus belli before forming something else. Their mission tree also gives them CCR, also gives them province worker cost, also gives them claims on pretty much every neighboring area, several times, gives them also a lot of missionary strength, and even makes them move their culture group to the Byzantine culture group. This makes Georgia able to form Byzantium without making a culture flip. Also, they can get restoration of union casus belli on Muscovy or Russia. By the time you get it, it will be most probably Russia. And then once you finish your first mission tree, what you are most likely going to do is to form Byzantium in order to get a stronger version of Byzantium. Is it good? Yeah, it's very good. However, this is just like, as I said before, is Burgundy good? Yeah, Burgundy is good. But what are we going to do? You are going to form France. And if you are going to form France, then you can just play as France since day one and it's going to be better. So this is why Georgia, even if it's good and C+, it's nowhere near to Byzantium. Now Timurids are straight going to there to a tier, and they could even be the best nation. However, playing with Majapahit campaigns is easier. Now, why are they so good even if we are ignoring the exploit? Because we are going to ignore the exploits every nation has. Even if we ignore that, they start with pretty much all of Persia and half of Central Asia under their command. Maybe not direct because they have vassals, but yeah. And as soon as you annex a gem, you can culture flip to Persian, which you should do, and then you will get a lot of more manpower and income from production and taxes from these provinces instead of staying as Uzbek. Now they can either form Persia or they can either form the Mughals. The Mughals, as I said, are one of the best tags in the game, if not the absolute best, paired with the Ottomans on Rome. You can even form Mamluks in the middle in order to form Egypt, get Suez, get all of the Mamluks special units, get all of the Mamluks special privileges, get Western units, and flip to Mughals and do a regular Mughal campaign or even a Persia campaign, whichever do you wanna do. Like, if you're going to do a Persia, usually just you should annex all your vassals and form Persia instead of doing all of the Mamluks things. But if you go Mughals, you can actually now stay a lot more as the Timurids, because the Timurids now have got a lot of good stuff in their mission tree. They didn't used to have a good mission tree, but now since the last patch they do, and you can even stay as Timurids for the whole game and do very nicely, because the Timurids are now strong per se. They don't even need to form anything else. Now there's a jam, and again, as France and Burgundy, if you're going to play a jam and form Persia, just form Persia as the Timurids. That's why it goes into C tier, because Persia is a good tag to form and the jam is a good tag to form Persia. But again, the Timurids exist, so just do it as the Timurids instead. Why would you do it as a jam? Now Kilwa again, sub-Saharan nation. This means it's bad, but it might be slightly better than Malacca, because Kilwa gets to colonize Indonesia on their mission tree. And yeah, that's it pretty much. Like, the whole point of Kilwa is taking over the Indian Ocean, but they don't have anything aside from that. Yeah, their home region is kind of hard to consolidate, not because conquering people is hard, because it's actually one of the easiest regions to conquer, but because of all the rebels and instability. Now Congo, again, sub-Saharan nation. It's bad. Maybe Songhai is a bit better because of the military buffs Songhai gets, but yeah, anyway, both are bad. So We go now with England, and England is one of the best nations in the game. You can start by PUing France. Doesn't matter if you're going to go with the Angevin path or with the Great Britain path, you can still take France as a PU. With this French PU, you can now fight the Italy, the Italians, and the Iberians. You can even fight the Iberians in order to take Granada, make Granada your vassal, integrate Granada, and you can do all of this by the 1460s maybe. Then annex them, and you get maps of all of the Indian Ocean. And as soon as you get maps of all of the Indian Ocean, then you will be able to complete your mission that gives you cores on India, and you can threaten war some Indian, and boom, now you are in India without even colonizing, without even exploring. Yeah, it's completely insane. Now, of course, because you have France as a PU, you can also take Provence as a vassal and start expanding in Italy, balkanize Italy and make them your vassal, then annex them. All of that while you colonize as Great Britain. You don't need to be the Angevin Empire in order to expand like this in Europe. But if you want to play the Angevin Empire, then it's pretty much the same, but colonizing less. And yeah, your expansion in Europe is way quicker. It's simply insane. Also, they start with a parliament, and parliament are completely broken in EU4. That's why England is up there today. Provence is somewhat similar to Georgia. They have an insane mission tree. They can stack a lot of modifiers, and then they will carry on some of these modifiers whenever they form something else. With Provence, usually you will form Spain because of the King of Kings mission to stack Diplonex cost. But yeah, again, if you want to play Spain, then just form Spain as, I don't know, maybe Castile or Aragon. Castile is better for that matter. There's no need to do all the stuff Provence does in order to build a stronger Spain if you can just build Spain quicker. It's that simple. Now, Savoy. Savoy is great. It's a very good nation and it starts in Italy. Italy is one of the best power bases in the game because of how high is the development in Italy and how close it's to every region. Like they can, from Italy, you can expand to every region in Europe aside from maybe the British Isles and Scandinavia. But they are going to Turkey, and this is because if you wanna get all of the good things Savoy has, which are on their mission tree, then just form Sardinia Piedmont. Start as something else that cannot be reformed, such as Milan and or Genoa. Make their missions, complete their missions, then swap to Sardinia Piedmont. Then boom, now you've gotten what's good from Genoa or Milan and what's good from Savoy. Then you can form either some other regional Italian tag or just Italy. So yeah, again, just as with a jam, even if a jam is good, you can just play Tumorids. Even if Savoy is good, you can just play Milan. Now as we're going with Burgundy and France, the example I've been mentioning for all of the game. Burgundy is great, one of the best nations. Like, they start in a very rich region, which is France. They also start with unions on the lowlands, which is also another one of the richer regions. You can also annex all of your subjects by using the Burgundian inheritance. You can also beat up France very easily. You can even enter the HRE and become the HRE Emperor, as you should already know by this point. Becoming the HRE Emperor is kind of insane if you get to revoke the privilege. But again, if you are going to do this, you might just do it as France. France gets to do all of this and more at the same time, because on the 100 Years War, you can just start the game with a foothold on Ireland, being ready to invade the British Isles, a foothold on the Maghreb, being ready to, as I said, invade the Maghreb. You can even release some kind of subject such as Leon or Catalonia in Spain. You can also diplo-vassalize the Italians. You can even go for the Icary Emperorship as France. So yeah, pretty much everything you can do as Burgundy, even if they can form Lotharingia and get good ideas, you can just do all of this as France, but better. That's why France is tier A and Burgundy is tier B. Then we have our best tier B nation, which is Aragon. Aragon starts with pretty much all of southern Italy because they've got Naples, half of Iberia, they reach half of Iberia. Yeah, they're one of the few nations that still benefit from doing the no CBBs strat. You can cut off the Ottomans very early. You can even declare on, let's say, declare on France or on England. Get to release Gascony and Toulouse, and then subjugate Provence and start expanding on the French region. All of that while you PU Spain, PU Portugal, PU Castile. However, their Spanish mission tree is very bad compared to the Castilian one. So if you're going to form something as Aragon, I recommend you should form Sardinia Piedmont instead. You can either do this by annexing Savoy eventually, because you'll make them up vassal diplomatically, as you're going to do with everything in Italy, aside from maybe Milan or Venice, and the Pope, of course. Or you can just move your capital, Leon, to Sardinia, because you also own Sardinia from the start, and passively start developing the land by concentrating whenever you conquer something, and then you can culture flip to Sardinia and form Sardinia Piedmont, and then form Italy. And then the Roman Empire. It's like one of the most classic Aragon games. Aragon, Sardinia Piedmont, Italy, and then the Roman Empire. Just because you're Catholic and have holdings close to Italy, you can diplo-vassalize everyone on one of the richer regions in the game. You have a frontier with France. You can expand in France. You get pretty much all of Iberia for free. You've got the Maghreb on the south, which is very easy to conquer for you. So yeah, Aragon is actually one of the best nations to form the Roman Empire. Like, the world record is still with England or the Ottoman Empire. I can't remember right now, but the easiest one to do so could be Aragon. They would be higher if it wasn't for the last update Venice got. Venice, as of this last patch, are insane. They can do all that Aragon does, but better, because they are a republic and don't need to stay as a kingdom to get their POs. They are just good like that. They can also invade on bees without nosebing, and they can also build Suez and start colonizing everywhere actually, because Venice is the nation with most colonial range early on. And you can, as soon as you build Suez, start expanding in India and make all that trade power be funneled through Arabia and all steered into Venice, on top of already Venice always had, of course. Like, you've got missions to take over all of the Balkans and Italy, and all of that while still colonizing and making a lot of money from it. Venice is just completely insane. That's why it's tier A and it's above Aragon. Now Granada is bad. They've got decent ideas on the mission tree in order to form Andalusia, which is actually a good tag. But as I said before, just do it as Morocco or Tunis instead. Now, Portugal is kind of tricky because they also have some stuff to colonize quick, just as England does. They are better than Poland, that's for sure, because colonizing is very strong. It has been very strong on the last patches, like TCing all of the provinces you need to TC in Africa and India and the East Indies give a lot of money, which gives a lot of army power and so on. That's why Portugal is that good. However, they're not as good colonizer as Castile, England, and even Venice. Venice is actually a very underrated colonizer right now, and it's one of the best ones just because of their early reigns. Now, I've mentioned earlier Castile, and I'm going to put it right there. Castile has one of the strongest early games among all of the starting nations. You can start by deleting from the game both France and England and taking over their nodes. Also, as soon as you get Aragon, you will be able to start diplo-vassalizing Italy. I know I've mentioned this a lot of times already, but diplo-vassalizing Italy is huge because you can get all of this rich land for no A and no admin power. You also get claims in the richest regions in America, which are Mexico and Peru. You can get a lot of money from the treasure fleets they give you. You also get claims in Indonesia. Not many colonizers get claims in Indonesia, even if it's just in the Philippines, which are arguably the worst archipelago in the East Indies region. It's still great to reach it. Now, what makes them that good is how many nations they can take over very easily. Under these nations fall, as I said, England and France, but you also get a lot of views on Portugal, on Aragon, and even on Austria and their views, usually Bohemia and Hungary. Spain is just insane. They also get a lot of moral of armies early on. The only bad thing is their ideas, but you can just keep the Castilian ones, which are decent, or you can just form something else and flip back to Castilian in order to form Spain. They also get Fecho del Imperio, which gives you a lot of good modifiers, diplomatic cost. You can even stack this with other modifiers you get and reach the diplomatic cost cap. Spain is one of the few nations able to reach that cap, and yeah, that's it pretty much. Like, Spain does everything and everything right. Now we go on with Florence, and well, Florence is actually good, so it could be easily ranked up there on the B tier list. However, if you want something from Florence, unless it's the first ruler, then you just have to start as Florence. You can just form Tuscany and you're going to get it. So again, as I said before, Genoa and Milan still stand the best Italian starting nations, unless you count Aragon as one too. And well, of course, Venice is completely busted. So if we're taking that into account, like, you can form Tuscany instead, just start as Milan, then we'd have to move it down right there, yeah, maybe below Hungary. Now these are the two best nations in Italy, aside from Venice, both Genoa and Milan. Milan is kind of better. Both go right there because, yeah, for me Italy is too strong right now. Genoa focuses a bit more around conquering the Mediterranean. They don't have great ideas, neither does Milan though, but that's no problem because you are going to form Sardinia, Piedmont, and then Italy anyway, or just Italy, and the Italian ideas are great. So yeah, if you're focusing more on Italy, then Milan is better if you're going to focus more on trade and conquering all of the Mediterranean before forming Italy, which doesn't make any sense anyway, because as soon as you get Italy, you get claims on all of the Mediterranean, like you get a casus belli for all of the provinces the Roman Empire held. So yeah. Anyways, Genoa still stands strong because they are the main power in the Genoa trade node, and that's what makes them that strong early on. Now Naples, it's as bad as Savoy. Well, actually not as bad as Savoy, because Savoy actually has a good mission tree, Naples doesn't. So that might put them even below, even below a jam. Just farm the two Sicilies if you want this mission tree for whatever reason, because it's not good, and neither are their ideas. Now, Aragon also starts by holding all of the Neapolitan provinces, so it makes no sense at all to place Naples, unless, I don't know, it's fun for you, then sure, go ahead. But Naples is just not a good nation. Now the Pope is kind of weird because it has great stuff in order to conquer all of Italy, and then even gets some claims to expand the Catholic faith outside of Italy. So it could be put right there if they only could form Italy, like they can't. So it makes no sense playing the Pope, like they're very bad. The only thing that might put you above others is that you start as the Curia controller and you can keep the control of it endlessly. That's why it might rank a bit higher than Florence, but yeah, not being able to form Italy, if even more if you play in Italy, is just not good at all. Now there we have Holland, Brabant, Flanders, I think it was called. Yeah, the Dutch nations, let's say, the Netherlands, and yeah, they're better than France, that's for sure. However, no, they're not better than Venice. This is a colonizer. Your main focus should be colonizing either the Americas or especially Indonesia as the Dutch, and they get a lot of development on their provinces, on the ones on the lowlands. Their ideas are not that great, but they are so rich anyway. They lack a bit of manpower early on, but as soon as you start half-stating and converting a few provinces you get on Africa and India and the East Indies, then you'll start being fine with manpower. What makes them so good? Definitely it's how rich they are. Now, since the last patch, they can also get a PU on Great Britain, which, I mean, PUs are not one of the best subjects, of course, because they don't give you trade power or money, nor you get access to their lands, like to extract gains from their lands. But you'll annex them eventually, like you still hold control of that, and this is what makes them decent, even though they have been outscaled by Venice, and of course England and Castile are still better colonizers than them. Now Brandenburg has been strong for a long time already, not because of the Prussian ideas, because yes, they're strong, but because of that mission that makes you virtually immune to aggressive expansion, like the one that asks you to promote a culture. You can demote and promote a culture over and over for reducing your AE. So even if you still you stay on the HRE, you will get pretty much no aggressive expansion for expanding aggressively. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but that's how it works. Just because of that mechanic, Brandenburg is insanely strong forming Prussia and of later Germany only makes them even stronger. However, as I said before, the colonial gameplay is very strong right now, so even though they could be ranked up there, maybe not above England. Maybe this would be their best place, but wherever you want to rank them, between England and France, it's completely fine. Now this is Brunswick, Hanover, and it's going to be C+. It has access to the strong mechanic, the HRE. They also get a PU on Great Britain, which is great. It's better than other regional German tags, but that's it pretty much. Like, they don't have much going on for them. They have bad ideas, pretty mid mission tree. The only thing they get from their mission tree is the PU on England or Great Britain. But again, this is to show you how strong the revoke the privilege is. In order to introduce Bohemia, in my opinion, one of the strongest nations in the game. You can even PU any nation in the game since day one. I mean, any Christian nation, of course. Ideally, you can do France, Aragon, or Muscovy, because you can abuse the thing that you don't have a king nor a regency council. You have an interregnum, day one, so you can just royal marry anyone, but only do one royal marry. Then you can wait until you get the elective monarchy event and pick one from their dynasty and just claim throne, declare PU, easy. All of that before PUing Poland, Lithuania and Hungary, which are your first goals, and all of that while still playing around the HRE. Starting with an elective monarchy also makes it easier for you to stack imperial authority by re-electing your rulers, clicking on the Emperor is Dead event, and then click on the ruler you want to get, and then click again, because you will get again the event of the Emperor is Dead, giving you a lot of imperial authority. You also start with Praga, which boosts even more your imperial authority growth. Bohemia has it very easy to revoke the privilege. It farms imperial authority even faster than Austria. The only difference is that Austria already starts as the HRE emperor, and you rely on the Austrian ruler to die before 1460, before the Shadow Kingdom event happens, because you don't want the Italians to leave the HRE. But aside from that, I'd say Bohemia is even stronger than Austria in most of the cases. Then there we have Kuln. Kuln, it's a pretty boring nation. You are in the HRE, but don't get to benefit from it because you are not a monarchy, so you can't revoke the privilege for yourself. And you, on top of that, you are an archbishopric, which is bad, very bad. And as I said before, until turn 9, monastic orders and bishoprics and all of that don't start being decent. So yeah, and as I said on the start, all of this I said about Kuln stands for Trier and for Mainz. They're mid at best. Now with the three Scandinavians, I'll go from lower to higher. Norway is at best, like, they get to colonize earlier than the other two, Denmark and Sweden, but even if gets to colonize earlier than them, they still do it worse because they start with pretty much no money. Like, the best provinces you get money from are the two on Iceland, and those are Arctic provinces. They're very bad to develop until you don't complete the mission that makes you spawn iron, copper and gold on your provinces. On Norway you will be very poor and rely on Muscovy, England, and maybe even France if you get the Burgundy inheritance for reparations. You also start with some very bad debuffs, so yeah, Norway is very lackluster. Even if you can PU both Denmark and Sweden, take over Scandinavia, vassalize Novgorod, and kind of conquer all of the northeastern Europe, it's just not worth the effort. You can do the same but better with Sweden and Denmark. Now, Sweden, all of you know how strong is Sweden, how strong their military is, how much money they can get from Telescope and Atleon, how much trade power can they get in the Baltic Sea, and how much can they boost the trade value of the Baltic Sea. However, they also start kind of poor until you develop a bit. Daraskogen, they get a PU on Poland, on Lithuania, which is great, and claims on the center of trade and estuary provinces on North America. All of this is great, but it also asks you to expand on the empire, so you need to either break the empire or constantly fight the emperor, which is not hard most of the times as Sweden because your army is strong enough. But yeah, it's kind of annoying. Denmark at least can click on that decision that makes the people in the Hanseatic League declare on them. Now, that's why they're slightly better than Poland. They don't run off of steam as soon as Poland does, but they are nowhere near as good as Portugal. Now, Denmark is definitely the best out of all of the Scandinavian nations. If played correctly, then it can be even up there, above Castile. Playing correctly means getting to hold of all the Kalmar Union together, starting to invade Russia, getting most of the trade power in Lubeck by making the archery thing Hanseatic League declaring you, and invading England in order to take the English Channel. Now, the best thing Denmark has on why they can be even up there, maybe, it's because they can form England in order to get benefit from the things England has in their tree. Let's say you can stack enough modifiers with the Danish absolutism and so on, and you can pair that with the Diplonex cost England has on their Masters of India mission and other colonial buffs England has in their mission tree, just by conquering England, where you get claims to conquer anyway. However, this is most optimally done by the tax switching to England anyway, so that might put Denmark a bit lower, but it's definitely one of the best nations in the game, and it shouldn't be overlooked because they can stack a lot of modifiers just because of how much absolutism they stack. You can like have 30% ground land and some privileges and still be at max absolutism just because of how much Denmark stacks. It's completely insane. Now we have the three South German nations I've picked. This is the Palatinate, Bavaria, and Austria. Both the Palatinate and Bavaria rely on the archery, so they are going down there to C+, close to Brunswick. All of these three nations rely on the same, revoking privilege. However, Brunswick at least has a PU on England or Great Britain. The Palatinate has some PUs on the archery, and Bavaria only has one in Austria, and you have to weaken Austria before doing it. So it's clearly the worst out of all of them. Now, however, they are all strong because revoking the privilege is that insane. And for the last nation, as I said, Bohemia can be considered as strong as Austria. However, as Austria, you already start as the H3 emperor, and you don't need to rely on the Austrian ruler to die early, just as the Bohemia does. You can also pretty early swap your tier 1 gov reform from Austrian Archduchy to elective monarchy. You should do it in order to do exactly what Bohemia does. You can also PU Bohemia, steal their electorate, and on the PU war you can also take Praga in order to convert it and benefit from the monument, just as Bohemia does. And well, you all know what Austria can do, like they can get all of Hungary, or even get Iberia for free because of their PU on Spain. Maybe Poland, but yeah, that's not a very reliable PO. However, you still get to revoke the privilege very easily, expand in the Balkans to counter the Ottomans, and get the Habsburgs casus belli, where you can just kill someone else ruler and put a Habsburg, and then you can just truce break, declare for the restoration of union after claiming the throne and getting pretty much all of Europe. And then as soon as you get all of Europe and unite the archery, you can just conquer the rest of the world in what's it, about 50 to 60 years. It's definitely one of the easiest world conquest and one faith even. And yeah, that's why it's 30. However, all of these three, Majapahit, Timurids, and even Bohemia, if you're lucky enough, can all be considered better than Austria. Now, this is all I have for you today, because I didn't add more nations. I'm pretty sure there are some nations I didn't add that you might like. So if you have any observation, any comment, just leave it on the comments below. I'll read it. I'll give it you a like, you and your comment. I'll give both of you a like. And yeah, that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.